Welcome to a short preview of this Screencasts Online video tutorial. Following on from the recent Pages update show, this week I revisit Numbers and Keynote to explore the most significant updates since the last full Screencasts Online tutorials. You can search for the full Pages, Numbers and Keynote tutorials using the tag iWork on the website or in the Screencasts Online apps. So let's start by taking a look at Numbers on the Mac, and then we'll take a look at the iOS version shortly. Now, since Apple have rewritten the entire iWork suite and they share a common code base, lots of the new features that are in Pages are also in Numbers and Keynote as well. There are a few extra tweaks, and I won't really go through all the new features again as I did in Pages, but we will revisit some of them and perhaps give you a bit more detail on some that I skipped over in the Pages show. The first being collaboration. Now, I explained in the Pages show that there is now real-time collaboration using the box service. Now, you don't have to use the box service. If I go across to Numbers here on my Mac, and let's just check which version we're currently running. So Numbers, About Numbers, this is version 5.0.1. If I just create a new file, so File, New, and we'll just create a blank Numbers spreadsheet. So if I save this now, let's give it a name. We'll call this Test2. I'm going to save it in my iCloud folder. So there is a Numbers folder within iCloud. I'll just save it there, Command S, so that's now saved. If I collaborate using the Collaborate button, this will create a link to the spreadsheet within iCloud, and I can use standard iCloud sharing to collaborate on this document. That's just a quick preview of one of this week's Apple-related tutorials from Screencasts Online. Screencasts Online is your premium source of Apple-related video tutorials. All of our members get access to brand new, up-to-date tutorials each week, as well as unlimited access to our entire video archive full of Mac and iOS related tutorials. You can stream and download all of our videos on your Mac, iPad and iPhone, and even your Apple TV using the members-only Screencasts Online Apple TV app. Membership also includes a complimentary subscription to the digital Screencasts Online monthly magazine, published each month and packed with videos, articles, reviews, as well as hints and tips covering all aspects of the Mac, iPad, iPhone, and all of the other fantastic Apple products. So, if you're ready to start getting the most out of your Apple devices, visit screencastsonline.com today and become a Screencasts Online member.